Nasty. A plague of wasps in winter. Warning. This is a horror story. You remember the woman who told me the story of the Bakerloo flea? Well, I didn't see her again for ages until one day I was in the park round my way in Hackney and suddenly there she was. "You don't live round here, do you?" I said to her. "No," she says, "but my son does. Now he's married and I like to come across and see him once in a while when I can afford it." "I bet you don't remember what you told me the last time we met," I said. "What was that?" she says. "That story. You know, that story about a giant flea that lived down the underground." "No one believes it," I said. Well, as I was just hanging about and it was a nice day, I then said to her, "Still, I don't suppose any other amazing things have happened to you, have they?" "Now that's funny you should say that," she said, "because I was thinking, this summer has been a real devil for wasps, hasn't it?" "Yeah," I said. "Well, it put me in mind of one time some years back now when it wasn't the summer we were bothered by them, it was the winter." "Go on," I said. "Now, my son wasn't long married and his wife Eileen was expecting, so I used to come across and see them more often in those days and stay over the weekend. They were living in the old GLC flats down by the Hackney Marshes, just next to the River Lee." "I know," I said. "Yeah, that's the Kingsmead." "They're the ones," she said. "Well, it was a devil of a winter, that one," she said, "and all the harder because it had come after a really nice summer. Now, and I know you're not going to believe your ears when I tell you this, even though it was such a devil of a winter, a very funny thing happened. They had a plague of wasps down there. No other word for it. A plague of wasps in winter. It was one of the most frightening, terrible things that I've ever seen, and it all happened just when Eileen was having the baby." "Don't tell me," I said. "Go on." "Well, I'll spare you the worst," she said, "but terrible things went on that winter. You can't imagine it. There would be, say, sitting indoors having our tea. Outside, it'd be freezing cold, raining maybe, and like all of a sudden, you'd hear this buzzing, and you could never be sure whether it come from the windows or under the table or where. And then maybe you'd look up, yeah, and there, from out the light fitting, they'd come. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 wasps, one after another, crawling out, and then they'd drop onto the table or begin to buzz round and round the room. And they always acted like they were drunk or drugged or something. They didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know what they were doing. I remember once they just fell straight onto our tea things. They bobbed about in the tea and crawled all over the sandwiches, and 2 landed in my son's hair. Now, my son has thick hair, like really thick and wiry hair, and the moment those wasps landed, it was as if they knew they had a job of work to do. They set to work digging their way through his hair to get to his scalp. But that wasn't all. One landed on his collar as well. I saw it there, and I can see it to this day, and the next moment it was creeping over the edge and down his neck. "Yeah, there's 2 of them in your hair," Eileen's shouting. "Never mind them," he shouts. "There's one coming down my neck." And he's struggling to get his jumper and shirt loose. "He's got me! He's got me! He's got me!" He was screaming now and dancing around like a mad monkey, tearing at his clothes. But he was afraid to pull them off, right? Afraid to pull them off himself, because that would just squeeze the wasp harder against his skin. "Let me get at those 2 in your hair," Eileen yelled at him. "One's got me right on the chest as well," he's saying. "They're stinging me all over," he was yelling. Get 'em out, get 'em out. I can't do it. Get my shirt off me back." Of course, by now he was scared to get the jumper over his head, because that would just squash his hair down onto his head. Oh, it was terrifying to watch him. He was like a mad bull, and he was swearing something terrible. "Tear it off me, you 2, will you?" he says. "Don't stand there. They've got through to me head now." So Eileen grabbed the bread knife off the table. "Stand still. For God's sake, stand still, love," she screams at him. So with 2 wasps stinging at his scalp and another one down his neck, he froze. He stood stock still, and she hacked at the jumper with the bread knife. I grabbed a chair, jumped up on it and tried to find the two of them that got tangled up in that hair of his. Talk about a needle in a haystack. Not that I was scared, mind, but my boy. I tell you, he's allergic to wasp stings. They swell up something awful, huge red lumps. And last time it happened, the doctor said it would be all right so long as he didn't get stung too many times at once. But he didn't know how many times might be too many for my boy. It could be 10 or it could be hundreds. We just didn't know. My boy just stood there, rooted to the spot, Eileen hacking at his jumper, and me going through his hair like a dog looking for fleas. "They're still stinging me," he says, through his teeth. Eileen tore that jumper apart and ripped his shirt and vest off, and the wasp just flopped off him onto the floor with my bare fingers. And I can tell you, I never dared do it before in my life. I pulled first the one, then the other wasp out of his hair. And as I pulled them out of his hair, I squeezed their heads. That's how I killed them. I squeezed their heads. Next day, my boy's back looked like a sack of potatoes. And oh, he was sick. I can tell you, he was sick. But I tell you, what I saw was nothing to what others saw, or what got into the paper, or what people told you about round the flats or up the new laundrette. In the mornings, out shopping, you'd find yourself talking to people you didn't even know. "Oh, did you get any last night?" Someone would say. "Oh yeah, only half a dozen in my bath, come crawling up the overflow pipe while I was having my bath, huh?" Yeah? There was people finding them underneath their pillars, in the saucepans, or blowing them out their hairdryers. And when you met people in the street, the first thing they did was stand there, showing you swollen fingers, swellings on their necks, on their lips, or even on their eyelids. Oh, it was a terrible time for us all, I can tell you. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to this channel, well, you can click on subscribe. If you want to like something, just click on like. And you can leave a comment as well. That's always nice. And don't forget my website, Michael Rosen, or one word, michaelrosen.co.uk.